Hello, this is Mike from Dimensional Walking. Today we're going to talk about a strange, high strangeness place in the United States that I have personally visited. So let's get started. So there are many strange places around the United States and around the world. I'll give you a couple examples. Of course, we have the Bermuda Triangle, we have the Alaskan Triangle, we have the anomaly around Lake Michigan, all kinds of strange disappearances, UFOs, other type of entities are sighted in these areas. So today I want to talk about another area, and I think it's a pretty extra strange place because of a variety of paranormal experiences and things that are going on in this area. In this area, I'm talking about is Mt.Shasta. And it's a beautiful, absolutely gorgeous area. I've been there, and today I want to talk about a little bit of part one. Will be a little bit. This will be a two-parter. Part one will be some history of some of the strangeness that has happened in and around that particular mountain. And then part two will be my experiences that I've had when I visited there. Oh, I guess it was about 25 years ago or so. But anyways, I think they're both be interesting, and I think you'll enjoy some of my experiences that I had there. So anyways, let's get started. So part one, a little bit of history. First of all, Mount Shasta, of course, is actually a volcano. It's over 14,000 feet high. It's located in the Siskiyou County in northern California. It being a volcano, it seems to just come out of nowheres. If you fly close to it, you'll see it. I live in northern Oregon, so we are about 100 miles, within a 100-mile radius, we have about 7 volcanoes. And most of them are located in the Cascade Mountains, but they far shadow the Cascade Mountains. And actually, Mount Shasta is also in the Cascade Mountains, and it also is so much farther above the Cascade Mountains. It's pretty incredible. It looks absolutely incredible when you see them because they're all usually snow-capped, and it's really quite the sight if you haven't seen any of them. And it's also a massive mountain. It reminds me of Mount Rainier. When you get reasonably close to it, it's quite massive. It's quite a bit bigger than I would say when I'm looking at Mount Hood, which I can look out from my front porch. I can see Mount Hood from here. But anyways, it's a pretty incredible place. It's very beautiful too. So, with that said, let's move on. So, there's been a lot of legend and a lot of myths about Mount Shasta, and a lot of them are around. It's kind of secret cities, lizard people, UFO sightings, etc. And a lot of this legend, the main core of the legend is around Lemuria. Now, there's been, these rumors and sightings, etc., of these Lemurians in and around the mountain. Okay? I've even heard of some time when people in the town have actually seen them walking through the town of Mount Shasta, which is very close to the mountain itself. But anyways, the deal with this is Lemuria. Let's talk about Lemuria for a minute. Lemuria was kind of a legend, a myth. Let's say, I don't know if there's any, scientific proof that Lemuria existed. There's all kinds of anecdotal proof, I believe. And it was a lost continent, very similar to Atlantis, but it is over in the Pacific side of North American continent, and it extended from just east of Madagascar all the way through somewhere into the middle of the Pacific Ocean, off the coast of California. Now, how close it got to California, nobody seems to really know. But the legend goes on to say that one of its centers or one of its cities happened to be under Mount Shasta. They even have a name for it. It's called Telos. And it's supposed to be this amazing city underneath the mountain And of course, the mountain is a volcano, so that I'm sure has some real major challenges having a city under it. Okay. So, anyways, there is some similarities between Atlantis and Lemuria, and of course, both of them supposedly sunk. Those continents sunk for some particular reason nobody seems to know. And the civilizations that were in both of them were very similar. Kind of a high-tech civilization, and the people that were residing there had a lot of abilities and to do some pretty amazing things. Okay. So, anyways, let's talk about the Lemurians themselves. A little bit of description. Most of them have been seen. The ones that have been seen are tall, long blondish hair, usually wearing some really fancy golden jewelry, and they're kind of dressed in kind of robes or tunics, and they seem to be kind of peaceful and friendly. Maybe a little more peaceful and friendly than the Atlanteans, because they were considered quite violent. Anyways, what I've heard, anyways, if they are true, that's the case. Again, they had the Lemurians had these ESP type powers, high technology, etc., and pretty incredible. Now, several people have written pretty interesting books on the Lemurians. There was this guy named Frederick Oliver. He wrote A Dweller on Two Planets about the Lemurians. I don't know where he got his particular information. I've not read the book, but somebody that I know has and said it's an excellent book. So you may want to look that book up and see what it is. The Lemurians were great builders, supposedly. They built these amazing temples all over their continental Lemuria, and even temples supposedly inside Mt.Shasta. Now, one of the other things that was so incredible about inside Mt.Shasta was they seem to have created this sun-like light, and nobody seems to know what it is, but people that have been close to the mountain actually sometimes say it glows. And also, and I'll talk about in part 2 of my personal experiences when I guess had my experience with Mt.Shasta. I will go through that and talk about that light a little bit to you. Then there was this other guy, this scientist. I guess he was an astronomer, and his name was Edward Larkin, and he was from the Lowell Observatory, which I believe is in south of Mt.Shasta. That I know exactly where it is. I thought it was in Southern California. But anyways, he claims that he was looking one night into the telescope, and what he saw was this city, supposedly Telos, with these magnificent temples and beautiful lighting, almost like it had a sun inside of it. He just went on and on about it. He couldn't believe it. Now, the reality was, here's this guy with his telescope looking out, and he sees this city, and he identifies it as a city that's underneath Mt.Shasta. Now, I don't know how he could possibly do that, since it's underground and inside a mountain, and he's looking up in the sky and sees it. I don't know if there was something was projected to him, whatever, but he swears by this. He absolutely swears, and a very sane guy. He's an astronomer, or he was an astronomer. This is 1940. So I don't really know, but it got quite a stir, I guess. And probably a lot of the descriptions of the Lemurian towns and cities and temples came from his description. That was the way I suspected, anyways. Anyways, one of the other things that about Mount Shasta that is really consistent, and I've heard from people over the years and actually read articles also, was that there's a constant UFO sightings over and around this mountain or volcano. Okay, remember it's a volcano. And so this, And what was so unique about these sightings are that they are long, many of them are long term, meaning that sometimes it seemed that these UFOs would hover in and around the mountain for up to 45 minutes. Some of them are 30 minutes, some are 45, but over the years, I've heard of these consistently long UFO sightings where people would just sit and watch them and then they would move. So I don't know what's going on there, but this is a very consistent thing for Mt.Shasta. There was this guy named Brian Wallenstein, and he wrote a book called Mt.Shasta Sightings, and this dealt with these sightings I just referred to, some of these long-term sightings, and the many people that saw this. He also seemed to talk about reasons why these beings were here, and he always came down to that they were here to give us some valuable information, and that's one of the takeaways from his book. And again, his book was called Mt.Shasta Sightings. And he also I think referenced in a book, he started the term off-worlders. That was a term that he kind of coined about these beings, these aliens that were in these ships. Then one of the other things that is very consistent there around Mt.Shasta, and I actually witnessed it myself, is these what do they call these things? Lenticle clouds that are over the mountains that look like UFOs. Okay, I used to see them quite a bit when I lived in New Mexico, and I did see them when I was there at Mt.Shasta, and they're pretty amazing. And the one that I saw there was like several layers, and you could easily see where a person, not knowing what they were, would mistake them for a UFO. And some people say there is UFOs inside those clouds. I don't know. I've seen them many times in other parts of the Southwest, and they're pretty special. And this place has them a lot. So another thing, this area is kind of in the middle of several Native American peoples. One of them is the Klamath people, which they have a lot of legends about the mountain themselves, and they actually kind of worship the mountain. And they believe a chief, one of their spiritual chiefs, Skull, his name is Chief Skull, and he supposedly descended from the sky, I guess like a god, and kind of hung out at the summit of the mountain there. And because it was a volcano, it's more of the legend is that, the above world or heaven and the below world hell, basically this mountain was a place of a battleground between heaven and hell. And this was the belief of the Klamath people. Now, Mt.Shasta is also, there is like 5 tribes that are kind of take some credit or take possession, I guess, of their beliefs. And the Mt.Shasta is a very important place, a sacred place for all these 5 tribes. One of the tribes, the Motok tribe, they believe, and not only do they believe it, it's actually true, I believe, that around the mountain there is Sasquatch and there is Bigfoot, and there's a lot of them. They believe that these, and they call them, maybe I can, Mahtakami. I'm sure I'm pronouncing it wrong, but the bottom line, it equates to Bigfoot, that they protect the mountain, they protect the region around the mountain. And there's been many sightings of these, of Sasquatch or Bigfoot around it. Now, one of the other things that's pretty incredible, not incredible, I guess a little on the scary side, is there's been a lot of disappearances around the mountain, or on the mountain too. There was a report in 1986 where 11 people went missing from the surrounding areas during 1986. And none of them were ever heard of. I think some of them were hikers, some of them was just people coming from town, just kind of getting close enough to observe the mountain. but they never showed up, and it all happened within that 1 year. There was another disappearance. There was a prospector named J.C. Brown, and he had been hired by a mining company out of England to go to Mt.Shasta and actually go into the mountain and find, apparently there was gold. They thought there was some gold in the mountain, and he ended up going down. Brown went down about 11 miles, he said. Now, I'm going to tell you that's a long ways down into anything, into a mountain or down into the earth. 11 miles is a very long way. It's hard to believe he made 11 miles, but we'll go along with the legend for right now. But what he found was pretty interesting. He claims he found these mummies, 10-foot mummies that had all these gold and gold shields and other valuables around them, which is pretty incredible. Now, let me tell you about something that happened to us when we were in Utah, and we also have a video on this particular thing. It's called Humanoid Giants in Utah, and you can see that on Dimensional Walking. But this is a very similar thing, and now we didn't go down 11 miles into anything. This was very much in the surface. Rainbow had a vision when we were looking for dinosaur bones in Utah, and she had a vision, and it was very similar, where there was these mummies. Hers were probably, she didn't really know how big they are, but she said they were quite large, and they had all these different gold, they had shields and helmets and all kinds of stuff like that underground. So it was really strange, very similar in many ways to what J.C. Brown had seen when he went into the mountain itself in Mt.Shasta. So then there was, I guess Brown came up, obviously, out of that, and he tried to get a group together to come up and actually go back in and try to get the gold out and look for the mummies again. But I guess what happened was, when the group got together and came up to Mt.Shasta, nobody could find Brown. He had disappeared completely. So he was also considered a lost soul in the venture of Mt.Shasta. So, anyways, one of the things, again, this is an area that is just loaded with strangeness, okay? Over the years, I've read many articles. Again, I have gone there myself, and I will talk about that in part 2. But my feeling is this is a massive vortex area in and around the Mt.Shasta area because of this. Typically, I've found over my research over the years that these areas that have these high levels of paranormal, including UFOs, including Sasquatch, other entities, dogmen, etc., it seems like if you have a high concentration of it, it seems like there's a vortex there too. Just happens to be, and I think this is a massive area of a vortex, and it could have something to do with volcanoes. I'm not really sure about that part. But anyways, with that said, that is a little bit of a history of some of the strange things. Anyways, in part 2, I will go ahead and I will talk about some of my personal visit there and some of the things that happened to me there in Mt.Shasta. So with all that said, thanks a lot. If you want to comment here, or you can send me a private email at dimensionalwalking@gmail.com. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.